The old woman's groceries hit the pavement one by one, cans rolling into the street, apples bruising against the curb, while strangers laughed and stepped around her like she was invisible. Her hands trembled. Her voice cracked. And just when one man shoved her shoulder and called her useless, a small, tired girl stepped forward and said, "Stop." Before we find out what happened next, take a second to subscribe to Kindness Teles, like the video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Stories like this remind us how powerful simple kindness can be, and you never know whose life you might change just by showing up. Maya lived on the far edge of the city where the buses came late and the sidewalks were cracked like dry earth. The apartment she shared with her father smelled faintly of detergent and old paint. It was small, barely enough space for a couch, a folding table, and two narrow beds pushed against opposite walls. But it was home. Every morning, she woke up before sunrise, tying her hair into a loose ponytail while the kettle hissed on the stove. Her father used to be a mechanic, but after an injury at work, he couldn't stand for long hours. The medical bills stacked up like unwanted mail. So Maya worked two part-time jobs while taking online classes at night, chasing a business degree she wasn't sure she could afford to finish. She stocked shelves at a grocery store in the mornings and cleaned offices downtown in the evenings. Most days, she counted coins before buying anything. Most days, she told herself things would get better. She had learned early that no one was coming to rescue her. If something needed fixing, she fixed it. If someone needed help, she helped them, even when she had nothing to spare. That afternoon, after a double shift, her feet ached like she'd walked miles on gravel. She stopped by the discount market to grab day-old bread and a small carton of milk. The place was crowded and loud, carts squeaking, people arguing over prices. She kept her head down, calculating what she could afford. Then she heard the crash. A metal cart tipped over near the entrance. Bags tore open. Groceries scattered across the floor. An elderly woman stood there frozen, thin as a branch, her gray coat too big for her shoulders. Her hands shook as she tried to gather her things. A jar rolled away and shattered. Instead of helping, people groaned. "Watch where you're going," someone snapped. "You're blocking the door," another said. A tall man in a business suit nudged her cart aside with his foot, muttering that old people shouldn't shop alone. The woman bent down, but her knees buckled. She almost fell. Something in Maya's chest tightened. She didn't think. She just moved. She dropped her own basket and hurried over, kneeling on the cold tile. She picked up the cans, wiped off the dust, and slipped them back into the bag. She gathered the apples, checking each one like they were fragile treasures. "It's okay," she said softly. "I've got it." The old woman looked at her like she couldn't believe anyone had stopped. Her eyes were watery, tired, but warm. "I'm sorry," the woman whispered. "I'm so clumsy." "You're not clumsy," Maya replied. "The floor's slippery. Happens to everyone." Behind them, someone huffed impatiently. The suited man clicked his tongue and stepped around them like they were trash on the sidewalk. Maya felt anger rise, hot and sharp, but she swallowed it. The woman didn't need a scene. She needed kindness. When the last item was packed, Maya noticed the woman counting crumpled bills with shaking fingers at the register. She came up short by a few dollars. The cashier looked annoyed, ready to remove items. Without hesitating, Maya slid her own money across the counter. "I'll cover it." "Oh no, dear, you don't have to." "It's okay," Maya smiled. "I was getting less anyway." It wasn't exactly true. That milk had been for her father. But she figured they'd manage with water for tonight. Outside, the sky was turning orange. Maya offered to walk the woman home. The bags looked too heavy for her thin arms. They walked slowly down the block. The woman talked in a soft, gentle voice about the weather, about how the neighborhood had changed, about how lonely afternoons could feel. Maya listened. Really listened. She learned the woman's name was Mrs. Evelyn. She lived alone in a small brick house a few streets away. Her son worked far too much, she said with a sad little laugh. Always busy. Important job. Big company. Hardly ever home. When they reached the house, Maya carried the groceries inside and set them on the counter. The place was tidy but quiet, the kind of quiet that echoed. "Thank you, sweetheart," Mrs. Evelyn said, squeezing her hand. "People don't stop for me anymore. They look through me like I'm already gone." Maya's throat tightened. "Well, I see you," she said. The woman insisted on making tea. They sat at the small kitchen table, steam curling between them. For the first time all day, Maya felt still. Before she left, Mrs. Evelyn pressed a small wrapped cookie into her hand. "For later," she said, smiling like a grandmother. Over the next few weeks, Maya stopped by whenever she could. Sometimes she fixed a light bulb or carried trash to the curb. Sometimes they just talked. Mrs. Evelyn told stories about raising her son, about baking pies, about how proud she was of him. "He's a good boy," she'd say. "Just lost in work." One rainy afternoon, Mrs. Evelyn slipped on her porch steps. Maya found her sitting on the ground, unable to stand. Panic surged through her. She called an ambulance and rode along to the hospital, holding the woman's hand the whole time. At the hospital, a nurse asked if she was family. Maya hesitated, then said, "I'm a friend." They waited for hours. Finally, the doors opened and a man rushed in, breathless, eyes wide with fear. He looked out of place in the small waiting room, wearing an expensive coat and polished shoes. He went straight to the nurse, voice shaking. "My mother. Evelyn Carter. Is she okay?" "Mother." Maya blinked. The nurse pointed him toward the room. He passed by Maya without noticing. But when he came out later, relief flooding his face, he saw her sitting there with Mrs. Evelyn's purse in her lap. "You stayed?" he asked quietly. "Someone should," she said. He studied her for a moment, then thanked her more times than she could count. His voice was gentle, not proud like the businessmen she'd seen downtown. Just tired. Grateful. Over time, he started showing up more often when Maya visited. They talked while Mrs. Evelyn napped. He brought coffee. She teased him about working too much. He admitted he ran a company and barely slept. He asked about her life too, really listened the way she had listened to his mother. She told him about her dad, her jobs, her dream of finishing school. He didn't pity her. He admired her. Weeks turned into months. Their conversations grew longer. Laughter came easier. One evening, Mrs. Evelyn watched them from the kitchen window, smiling like she knew something they didn't. Later, she took Maya's hand and whispered, "You saved me that day. Not just from falling. From feeling forgotten. Anyone who treats a stranger like family, that's the kind of person I want in my son's life." Maya's heart skipped. She tried to laugh it off, but the warmth in the woman's eyes made her cheeks burn. Life didn't magically become perfect. Bills still came. Work was still hard. But somehow, she wasn't carrying everything alone anymore. And the man who had once rushed through life too busy to notice anyone began slowing down, showing up for dinners, fixing things around her apartment, helping her father find a lighter job at his company. All because one exhausted girl had knelt on a grocery store floor and picked up someone else's apples. Years later, when people asked how everything started, they'd expect some grand romantic story. Instead, it always came back to that simple moment. A crowded store. A fallen bag. A choice to care. Kindness rarely looks dramatic when it happens. It's quiet. Small. Easy to ignore. But sometimes it opens doors you never imagined, connecting lives in ways money or status never could. Maya didn't help because she wanted something back. She helped because it felt right. And that simple act changed not just one lonely woman's day, but an entire family's future. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs a little hope, and tell us in the comments about a time you chose kindness, even when it was hard. You never know who might be watching, or how one gentle moment could change everything.